So let's fast forward to a couple days before my horrible delivery when me and Aubrey almost died. So a couple days before I went into labor, I was already about like 2 or 3 days late, I want to say. And I had gone in and I fully was going in with the mindset of that they were going to talk about inducing me. I had gone in and we had discussed how the baby wasn't here yet. I was like not dilated whatsoever at all. I was trying like, you know, everything to make myself go into labor. I wasn't doing anything crazy, but you know, I was like taking walks and stuff like that. And basically we had gone in and the game plan was if she wasn't here by the next week, which would be the 17th, that we would talk about inducing me. Now here's 2 places where my midwife went terribly, terribly wrong. First being that I only got 1 ultrasound throughout my whole entire pregnancy. And whenever somebody hears me say that, they're like, I got like 7 ultrasounds or I got this many ultrasounds, but for whatever reason, I only got 1. Second mistake that they made was that they never really disclosed the weight of the baby. They just said like, oh yeah, around this weight or around that weight, or yeah, probably gonna be like a big baby, but no more than like 7 or 8 pounds. Or like 8 pounds, something like that. And that's actually not something uncommon. Even my friend who was pregnant a couple years after me said that when she would go into her doctor's office that they would say the same thing and they wouldn't really disclose what the weight was. And here's the thing, I'm 5'2" and I range from, I normally like 135 pounds and I have a very tiny build. So if the baby was going to be big, it probably, me being so young, I was only 19 years old, or no, I'm sorry, now I was 20, but you know what I mean. Me being so young and me being so tiny, it wasn't really a good idea for me to give birth to a baby so big. And C-section should have been discussed. So and also the third major mistake was that in one of my visits, my blood pressure was severely elevated. She did a couple tests. I maybe stayed for like 30 minutes and she told me like, you know, we're going to go and run some tests and if anything comes up and pops up bad, the hospital is right upstairs and we can discuss our options, like if you have to deliver today or whatever. So we did a couple tests and everything seemed fine. And even the guy who was doing the tests on me, I had to wear this like band around me for like 30 minutes to monitor the baby's heartbeat, my heartbeat and everything. And everything looked good. They did a blood pressure test again and everything seemed fine, and he even said like, oh yeah, the baby's probably gonna be like, you know, big, like it looks like, you know, the baby's rounding out around this many pounds or whatever. And like I said, I was 19 years old. I was 20, but I was very young. I was by myself. I had nobody with me during these visits, so I didn't know any better. Like, I just thought that, you know, these are doctors, I should trust them, they know what they're talking about, etc. Not catching the high blood pressure and running as many tests as possible to make sure that it's not preeclampsia. And I'm just gonna read you like the textbook definition, that way I don't get anything inaccurate. Basically, preeclampsia is a potentially dangerous pregnancy complication characterized by high blood pressure. Symptoms could be high blood pressure, swellings of hands and feet, or protein in the urine. You also may have swelling in the legs, water retention, etc. But a lot of these things are also common in pregnancy, you know, the swelling in the ankles, the water retention, because you're gaining weight, you're on your feet, and fluids are being dispersed all around your body. So it's hard to tell if it's preeclampsia or just typical pregnancy symptoms. Also, things like headaches can be common and stuff like that. And I was having a few headaches here and there, but I naturally have migraines anyway. And I also did have the high blood pressure, but again, my midwife didn't think it was anything to be alarmed about. And I talk about this with my mom frequently, and I honestly think that they saw a young, healthy girl and that they thought that these were just typical signs of pregnancy, and because I was young and I was so healthy that I was going to be okay. But the main thing with that is these rare occurrences that I'm about to talk about, which happened to me, can happen to anybody. Just because it's 1 in a million doesn't mean that I'm not that one. Doesn't mean that you're not that one. And a lot of doctors mistaken that sometimes. When people bring up things that are rare, they'll be like, oh, well, that's 1 in a million, or that's 1 in, you know, whatever. Like, it's so rare that can't possibly be the case, but sometimes it really is. And when you miss that, you could potentially end somebody's life. You could potentially make one mistake. It just takes one mistake to cause a death during a delivery. And I heard that a lot of this happens to primarily women of color, which I think is absolutely horrific. The birth death rate of women of color versus Caucasian females is just, it's insane, the difference. And I do truly believe that certain people do not get the attention they should when it comes to delivering in an unsafe body state of mind. So that's something to look out for too. Listen to your body. If something's wrong, something's wrong. Don't listen to the whole like, oh, it's 1 in a million, because you could be that one. And it just takes one mistake between life or death. So if there's anything you take from this video, please advocate and fight for yourself, because if I knew better, I would have done that for me. I knew something was off, but I didn't know what to say. Preeclampsia, I'm reading it here just because, again, I don't want to say anything inaccurate, because this is a very serious thing, you guys. Preeclampsia affects the arteries carrying blood to the placenta. The placenta is where your baby gets all of its nutrients from. So if blood supply or anything is being cut off, that can really affect your baby. Preterm birth, placenta abruption, eclampsia, organ damage, cardiovascular disease. So it really is serious. It's not good at all, and it's something that is very life-threatening. And if not treated, it can turn into eclampsia, which is what happened to me. So I had preeclampsia. It wasn't treated or looked at, so it turned into eclampsia. Eclampsia is when you have a seizure during birth and there's brain disruption. And it could be life-threatening not only to you, but to the baby as well. And it could have long-term effects after as well. So I'm just going to read you again the terminology: a condition in which one or more convulsions occur in a pregnant woman suffering from high blood pressure, often followed by coma, and posing a threat to the health of the mother and the baby. So it's basically a seizure that occurs during birth. And I'm going to talk about a bit about what happened to me. So basically what happened was, I went home after that appointment. I was so sad. I was crying. I was like, I just want to have my baby. I just want her here. The longer I wait, the more miserable I was. I was only getting 3 months, so I feel like I was wasting my time on my maternity leave, and there was a lot of things going on in my head. I went home that night. I went to sleep, and I woke up at about 4 in the morning with the worst pain in my abdomen that I've ever had in my entire life, and I knew that the birth process was starting. So I went ahead and I called the hospital. I told them what was happening, but because my contractions were not exactly like too close together, there wasn't much they could do for me. They suggest that I go take a bath, or that I go, you know, like eat something or try to sleep or walk around the house or something like that. So I remember I went to go take a bath, and I felt so bad. It literally felt as if, like, take period cramps and times it by like 50. I'm not even over exaggerating. Those contractions are no joke. So I went to go try to take a bath. I went to go try to eat something. I went to go lay down, and like absolutely nothing was working. And it got to the point where I was in so much pain. I looked at my dad and I was like, we have to go to the hospital. I don't care. Like, we're going. So we went to the hospital, and it was only about like a 15-minute drive. But I remember on the way there, we were hitting like every single pothole. If you know anything about New Haven, their potholes, like, I don't know where our tax dollars go, but the freaking potholes are just always there, never filled. I don't get it, but it needs to be addressed. We get to the hospital, we park, and we go inside, and they give me a gown. They do, you know, so they see how dilated I am. They do a few tests. They get my symptoms. They get my temperature, my vitals, and all that. And I am not dilated, like, at all. Like, I don't exactly remember the exact like centimeters or whatever, but I remember I was like barely there, and they were just like, there's not much that we can really do. Also, your contractions are still not too close together, so we had to be sent home. If you've ever been sent home after going to the hospital when you're going through labor, you know, that is like the worst thing ever. Also, like, people had told me like, oh, you're probably gonna go early, or like, you're healthy, your labor's probably gonna go really fast. And I just have to say that that is like, don't say that to people, because I so in my mind was like, I'm gonna go early, like I'm carrying pretty low, I'm gonna have my baby earlier, like my birth is gonna be so fast. I heard about how this one woman on the way to the hospital like almost gave birth in the car, and that just wasn't the case for me. So I no longer really tell people my story because I don't want to get them freaked out or anything. And I also don't like, if I were to get pregnant again, or when I do get pregnant again, I don't really want to hear stories from anybody else either, because everyone's body is different, everyone's delivery is different, there's nothing wrong with that. But we can't really compare stories, you know? Go back home and I'm so miserable. My mom ends up coming over, my cousin ends up coming over. My dad orders pizza, and I think about maybe like 4 hours go by and my contractions start really coming in close. So we knew that it was time. I grabbed my hospital bag and I basically told them, I said, even if I'm not dilated, my contractions are so close together that I'm not leaving. Like, I don't care if I have to sit in that lobby. I don't care if I got to do a freaking blow up mattress. Like, the way that I am is like, I'm a very nice person, and I sometimes don't like asking for too much because I'm a people pleaser. But when I'm in pain, like, I do not handle pain well. If I ever were to get a shot, I would cry. I don't have tattoos for that reason. Like, I can't handle pain. So I basically was like, I don't care if they turn me down, like, I'm not going anywhere. We go to the hospital, we check in, they get me in a room, and they see that like I'm a little bit dilated, but that it's not too much progress, but because my contractions are, you know, further together, that I can stay. And another thing too is that my water did not break yet. And that was concerning as well, because normally when your contractions are so closer together, you break your water, or that's normally like one of the #1 symptoms, is that first your water breaks and the contractions follow. My water had not broken yet, and we're almost going about 12 hours into this. So they set me in a bed, and I'm just like so happy, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm ready. Like, I know it's gonna be painful, but you know, I'm gonna be able to get the epidural soon. And then once I get the epidural, I heard it's like a dream, etc. So because I could not get the epidural just yet because my water had not broken, they decided to give me some morphine because the pain was really bad, you guys. Like, I was miserable. I was crying, I was screaming, like, it was so bad. So she comes in and she gives me morphine, and this is not my midwife, this is another midwife who was horrible, a really horrible lady. She was so mean, so nasty. My whole family agrees. Like, she was really mean. Like, she should not have anything to do with being a midwife or going near anybody who's pregnant. She was a horrible lady, and I don't talk about people like that at all. I'm always someone that sees the good in everybody. I'm a very empathetic and caring person, but this woman, like, when I look back at what the worst part of my delivery was, it's probably her. She comes in and gives me some morphine, and then she leaves, and she says something like, it was my mom, my cousin, and my dad. That's the only people who were there with me. And she was making a comment on how I had so many people in the room. Like, why does that matter to you? They're my family and they're here to support me. Like, when my dad is holding my hand because I'm screaming for my contractions, he wants to go take a break, my mom will go in, then my cousin, like, why does it matter to you how many people I have in my room? And then she said something about the TV being on. Like, you shouldn't really have the TV on when, you know, you're trying to get rest. Like, she was being really mean. There was other stuff that was said too, but I'm not going to get into it. So she leaves, and about 2 hours later she comes back just to check in, and I'm walking around, I'm going to the bathroom, and she looks at me like with this concerning look, and she was like, I just gave you enough morphine to put a cow down. Like, how are you up right now? And I said, I can't sleep. I said, I'm still in so much pain. I am hurting really bad. Like, I understand I can't get an epidural yet, but like, I need something. Like, I can't. Like, it was so bad, you guys. So she gives me like a little bit more of something. It does absolutely nothing. My pain does not go down whatsoever. And then finally, I think maybe like 3 hours after going through all of that, my water finally breaks. My water finally breaks, and I'm so happy because I'm like, oh my God, yes, I can finally get an epidural. And then they end up checking me. They end up seeing that I am a little bit more dilated and that I can finally get my epidural. So Getting the epidural was the least painful thing out of all of this. I don't know why people are, your experience is true to you, but I don't know why people make it out to seem like an epidural is like a horrible thing, because I didn't feel anything. I was ready at that point to get rid of my pain. So I get the epidural and I lay down, and I'm still in so much pain. It does absolutely nothing at all. I'm still in so much pain. I'm still tossing and turning and crying my eyes out, and I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I literally said at one point, I was like, Mom, I can't do it. And then, you know, everyone was kind of just like, Dakota, like, you have to, like, it's not an option. I was just in so much pain, and I was just praying. I was like, please, like, there's nothing worse than being in pain and having it not being able to subside. So sometimes when you get an epidural, it's not done right the first time, and because of that, sometimes you have to get a second one. So the pain was not going away. Hours were going by. I was so miserable, and I was just at this point done. So they decided to give me, at this time, another epidural. They give it to me. I'm laying there. I'm like, I can sleep for maybe like a half an hour, and I woke up, and again, I was in excruciating pain. And at this point, it was like so much worse than it was before. And the anesthesiologist comes in, because they're like, okay, like, you know what, maybe she just needs a little boost to something more. So he gave me what they like to call a cocktail, and I don't know exactly, I'd have to go through the paperwork, but it basically was essentially like something that he could put in the epidural, because when you get an epidural, it's like connected to a tube, and then you press a little button and it shoots up more of the fluid. And the epidural is basically, if you've never had a baby before, I should have said this earlier, but it's something that makes the contraction pain like subside, so you can like sleep and stuff like that. And then when you give birth to the baby, you're not supposed to like feel it. You're only supposed to feel like a little bit of pressure. So he comes in and he gives that to me, and they're all like, we're sure this is gonna work. We're sure this is gonna help. You're gonna be sleeping in no time, and then when you wake up, let's have this baby. At this time, my midwife was there. She finally came, and you know, she finally came for her shift for that day. I don't mean finally came as if we were waiting for her. She wasn't her shift just yet. So she comes in, and you know, I had like a sense of hope, because I really did like her a lot. And she just came in, she's like, all right, we're gonna get this in you, you're gonna feel better, let's have this baby. Like, she was so positive and uplifting that I, for a split second, thought that things were gonna turn around for me. So they give me the little cocktail concoction, and it doesn't do anything. And I just was like, I can't do it, I'm done, like, I can't. So the anesthesiologist comes in again, and I literally will never forget. I will never forget the look on the anesthesiologist's face when he comes in, he looks at me, he looks at my parents, and he looks at my midwife, and he was like, I don't get it. I don't understand how she's still in pain. I don't understand how it's not working. I don't know. And to hear somebody who has been through probably thousands of births, has helped so many people, has made so many people's pain go away, literally sit there and be like, I don't know. Okay, another day, another look. I apologize, guys. The past couple days have been really crazy. I wasn't able to finish the video, so I'm doing so now. If you hear descendants in the background and kids screaming, the kids are downstairs playing. That's part of being a mom, is you have to work with the time that you have. It is what it is. So let's continue. So basically, I had left off on saying how the anesthesiologist was kind of looking at me, and he was kind of just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know why this isn't working. I don't understand why she's not being relieved from pain. Like, I don't know what to do. And I just really can't explain in that moment what it's like to have somebody who is like, their job is literally to help relieve you of this pain, to like not know what to do with you, basically. It was so scary. It was really traumatizing. And I basically was like, oh great, so I'm basically gonna have to push this baby out with no pain relief whatsoever, and I'm gonna feel everything. And the thought of that was just so scary, but at the same time I was just like, I'm ready to get this baby out, like whatever we have to do, whatever we have to do. Now in the meantime, my mom was growing concerned, because in most cases, if this is happening where it's been over 24, 48 hours, because at this point it had been 2 days. I've been going through this, and at some point most people would look at it and say, let's try a C-section. Like, let's just do this, because if we don't, you know, you may be in pain for longer, or there may be complications, etc. And my mom was starting to bring up some concerns. She was saying maybe we should just do a C-section, or like, is this normal? Like, are we supposed to be just like waiting around like this? And she was just being a concerned mom. Like, she was doing what I would do if Aubrey was in that situation too. Like, something wasn't right, and we all felt it. Like, something is not, this isn't like normal, like something is not right. And I remember my midwife kind of a little bit giving her an attitude. I obviously wasn't aware of this because I was in so much pain, but my mom, you know, just from years on us talking, she had basically said that she, you know, gave her like kind of an attitude, and my mom was kind of like taken back, but at the same time she was worried about me. So time goes on, and eventually it's time to start pushing finally. And so I'm just in the mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna push, I'm gonna get the baby out, like everything's gonna be fine, this is gonna be over, like it's gonna be great. So I remember pushing and pushing and pushing, and like nothing was happening, like no progress, nothing was happening, and there was no progress whatsoever. And I just kept pushing, and I got so tired. And you guys know, if you've ever given birth, what it's like when you're just done. Like, your body, your mind, just everything is physically spent. You've been spending so many hours in pain, so much time just crying and just like agonizing over the pain, and there's nothing you can do about it. And my body was just done. I remember just like, I looked at my midwife and I was just like, I can't do it. Like, I cannot do it. I can't do this. And she said, you have to, there's no choice. And in that moment, I remember I was so thirsty, and I was only allowed to have ice chips, because like, when, you know, when you're giving birth and you're like on an epidural and stuff, you can't be like eating and drinking. So I remember I looked at my cousin Hillary, who was there, and she was just looking at me, and like, everybody was crying, by the way. Everybody was crying, because my whole family was just like, oh my God, this poor girl, like she's been going through this for 2 days now, like there's no relief, like nobody knew what to do. And there's nothing worse than seeing your child in pain and like not knowing what to do about it. So I remember my dad had gone out to smoke a cigarette, and it was me, my mom, and my cousin. And I remember my midwife left, and she said, you know what, we're going to give you some more time, and then we'll come back and we'll try again. I said, okay. I remember I looked at my cousin, and I was just like, I'm so thirsty. And she said, okay, honey, I'm gonna go get you some ice chips. And she turns around to get an ice chip. And all I remember is waking up the next morning with a breathing tube down my throat. I don't remember anything that happened. I have no recollection of anything, but from what I can say from doctors and family members who were there, is I started to have a seizure, and a really severe one. I was foaming out of the mouth, my body was convulsing, and this was an aftermath of having eclampsia. So when you have preeclampsia, it's basically before birth, and it shows complications that one can have during labor, such as a high fever, blood pressure, which will then have the body go into a full-blown seizure. Eclampsia is what you're having you know, during, like, eclampsia is like the seizure and stuff like that. Like, that's like what happens like during the birthing process. Preeclampsia is if you kind of like know about it before. So I'd had it before. Like I said, they did the appointments, they did the test, they missed it on the test, I guess, so that nobody knew I had the preeclampsia. And then when I was giving birth, I guess a mixture between my blood pressure being high and my, it caused my temperature to spike up pretty high, and my body just like that went into shock and went into a seizure. And I'm going to be telling the story now from what my mother and my cousin saw, because like I said, I don't remember. I was having a seizure. I don't have any recollection of what's going on. So my mom goes into full-blown like mama bear mode and runs into the facility, and she's like screaming, and she's like, she's having a seizure, we need somebody in here, we need somebody. And my mom said literally within like not even 30 seconds, there's one thing I have to say about, I'm getting chills talking about this, one thing I have to say about this hospital, it's the St. Ray's campus in Yale, New Haven, is that their response team like that. Like, they are amazing. Like, I remember the teams there were amazing, so amazing. My mom said that they didn't even breathe. Like, everybody literally dropped what they were doing, ran to the room, gave me so whatever they needed to give me in order to control the seizures, and they had me within the operating room to perform a C-section within seconds, like seconds. And my mom didn't, like, you know, she's sitting there and she just is screaming. She's like, you guys need to come, she's having a seizure. And they come, they grab me, and then they're not really telling her anything because, like, they're worried about me and the baby, because at this point I'm having a seizure. Whatever is going on is going right to the placenta, which is cutting off, you know, food, nutrition, life basically to the baby. So at this point they're worried about me, but they're also worried about the baby dying, and me as well, because seizures can cause brain disruption, it can cause brain damage, it can cause a multitude of things. Like, seizures are really, really not anything to mess around with. They're very dangerous. It's literally your body and your mind are not working together. Your brain is not getting the signals that it needs to have your body live, basically. Like, it's really, really scary. And at that time, they had gotten me in and out of the room and into the operating room. Like I said, within like 30 seconds, they were ready to perform an emergency C-section, not just any regular C-section, an emergency C-section. You can go in, you can have like an appointment for a C-section, or it could be like, you know, you're realizing that like regular birth is not going to work, and they're like, okay, we'll schedule you for a C-section at this time. But when it's an emergency C-section, like, it's no games. So as this is all happening, my dad was coming up from the garage, because like I said, he went downstairs to have a cigarette, and he was like, what's going on? He just sees a million people taking me to like an operating room and nobody's saying anything. My cousin's crying, my mom's crying, and my dad, like, I can't even imagine what it must have been like looking at that situation from his point of view. So they bring me into the operating room, they perform a C-section, and they get the baby out, and thank God the baby was fine. Aubrey, which is my daughter's name, they said that she was good, she was okay, she was healthy, that they got her out just in the nick of time. But they did send her to ICU in order to just be watched over, take oxygen levels, run some tests, you know, make sure that basically she was okay, because who knows what could have happened. And plus all like the stuff they were giving me, like the morphine and the medication and stuff, like, that can't be good for a baby. I don't care what anybody says, but they just needed to make sure she was good. Now, when it came to me, I had anesthesia, so I was completely knocked out. So I don't have any recollection of the C-section because I was not awake for it. So I didn't get to experience like the baby coming out and crying and you seeing it for the first time. I didn't get to experience, you know, watching everybody in the room just be in awe of this newborn life that's so precious. I didn't experience a birth. I experienced me almost dying and not living to tell the tale. And I really do believe that my Nana was watching over me, as well as just God and the universe and all my guardian angels, because there was a really good chance that I wasn't going to make it, and I did. So I'm really grateful for that. They had gone up to my parents and they had told them, hey, look, the baby's out. She's going to be in the ICU unit for the next, day or so. We're going to monitor her, do lots of tests, make sure everything's okay. But as far as your daughter goes, we have to do a multiple amount of scans to make sure that she doesn't have brain damage. And imagine like being my parents and you're the doctor and you're telling them like, hey, we know that everything you just went through is traumatic. We know you guys have been here for 2 days and your daughter's been screaming and crying for hours of those 2 days and she's gotten no relief and you guys have no answers. And I know that she just went into I forgot to mention I had 2 full-blown seizures. She just went into 2 seizures. We had to rush her into the operating room. It was like a scene from Grey's Anatomy. But we now also have to see if she has brain damage or not. And just imagine being like my parents. My parents were a wreck. They were so distraught and so upset. Like they were so scared for me, because imagine, like, I'm already a single mom. I'm already doing this on my own, but then to have brain damage from this, like, it just, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine being them at this time. And I just remember like everybody was crying. Like my dad was crying, my mom was crying. They were all scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. And so now I'm going to be telling the story from my point of view of me waking up. So as I said, I have no recollection of the seizures. I have no recollection of what happened during that time because my body was physically not present. So all I remember is waking up and I'm looking around and I have a breathing tube in my throat. So I look around and I go to like say something, but then I realize I can't because there's a breathing tube down my throat. And I look down and I see all these IVs plugged into my arms. I see this like thing wrapped around my stomach, which is probably monitoring like my heartbeat or something. I look around and there's nobody there. And I look out to like the room where like usually like the receptionist is taking people in or telling people where like their loved ones' rooms are, and there's nobody there either. And then I finally look down at my belly and realize that it's not like big anymore. Like there's no bump. It's just like back to my regular size stomach. And so imagine me waking up, breathing tube down my throat, can't say anything, nobody's around me, no one's there, and then I see there's no baby. I started flipping out. I started almost trying to take all of my like IVs out. I was trying to take the, like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I woke up and I was just in shock because I'm like, where the fuck's my baby? Because nobody's about to tell me that my baby didn't make it. Nobody's about to tell me that she's not here anymore, because I will literally lose my, I will burn this building down. Like, you have no idea. So I look around and I just start trying to take everything off. I just start trying to rip everything off. And then I don't know like how somebody knew that I was awake, maybe because they got like notification. I don't know what it was, but like a nurse comes running into the room and she's like, no, it's okay. Everything's okay. You're okay. Your baby's okay. And I just look at her, and again, I can't talk, I can't say anything, so I can't communicate and ask what's going on, why am I here? And she just places her hands on me and she goes, I'm gonna go get your parents and we'll explain everything that happened, but your baby is fine. She's great, she's healthy, she's okay. So I just start like crying in, and I just start breathing in and out, and then I just start crying because I'm just like, thank God she's okay, because guys, I don't know what I would have done if I left that hospital without that baby. I would have been a wreck. So my mom and my dad come in and they rush over and they hug me and they're like, everything's okay, like you're doing, like you're great, the baby's great, don't worry. And they start explaining to me what happened, about how I went into the seizure and how, you know, I had the eclampsia and that, you know, she was in the NICU, but that she was just being observed and tested, and that everything was going to be fine, just not to worry, everything's going to be okay, you're good. You just need to rest now. And basically my body had been through so many like traumatic things that I had like no color to my face. I had no color to my skin. I felt so like weak, and I just felt like not human. Like I can't even describe how I felt, but I had gone through so many traumatic things between the seizures, the medications, the fluids that they were pumping into me, that the anesthesia, oh my God, coming off of that is a freaking nightmare. It gives you like the worst headache ever. And I remember like in the middle of talking to my mom, the nurse was like, I'm gonna go get you some juice because you don't look good. And I did not. I had like no color to my face. My mom said I looked so gray and like green that like I did not have any complexion to me whatsoever. It was just like dull. So the nurse goes and she gets me like a cookie and a juice, and I start drinking and eating that, and I start to feel a bit better. And it's crazy because throughout all of this, like they're explaining what's going on, and I'm finally like, so where's my baby? Can I go see her? Like I don't want to sit here anymore. Like I want to go see my baby. At this point, I had not seen my child once at all in the almost 24 hours that she has been born. She was born at 7:24 p.m. on March 14th, and this was March 15th at like 8 o'clock at night. So I still hadn't seen my baby. And they were like, you need to rest a little bit before we can get you up there and acclimated, because she's probably gonna want to breastfeed. So like we need you to be a little bit better first before we go introduce you to her. And I was like, okay, like whatever I have to do, I want to go see her. And the nurses were so sweet because I had made it adamant that I really wanted to breastfeed. So the lactation nurses there actually would like pump while I was sleeping and get my milk and then bring it up to Aubrey and bottle feed her. Like they were just, oh, the most amazing, precious like people that I could ever come across in my whole entire life. Like, nurses are truly angels, angels that we don't deserve. So I remember I ended up getting some rest, and I ended up waking up probably the next day in the morning, and they came in and they were like, okay, you ready to go meet your daughter? And this is, again, 2 days after she was born. I had not once seen my baby yet. And I said, yeah, I'm ready. Like, let's go. So they bring me upstairs. We go through all these hallways, all these elevators, and it's like, in my mind, it's taking like 20 minutes. It probably only took 5, but those minutes went by like days, because I wanted to meet my baby. Like, I wanted to meet this child that I created and like almost died for. Like, I want to meet her so bad. So I'll never forget the day when we got out of the elevator and we go into this room, and it was so bright out. That's all I remember, is like, it was almost as if, like, you know how they show when somebody is like walking into the light of heaven? Like, that's almost what I attribute it to. Is I walked into this room and there was just an overwhelming, like, huge orb of like sunlight in my face, and I look over and I already know which one's mine, which is crazy because I've never seen her before. But I look over and the nurse is like holding her, and she has this cute little like rainbow hat on that I still have to this day. One of the nurses there knitted it for her, and it was so soft, and it was like pastel colored. And she goes to get up and she brings her to me, and she's like, this is your baby. And I grabbed her and I just started crying, and I just started snuggling her, because she was so perfect and cute and big. Oh my God, my baby was like 9 pounds, 12 ounces when she was born. And she was just so perfect and adorable, and she had these like amazing like blue grayish eyes, and she had this dark hair and these cute little hands and feet, and she was just everything that I had ever imagined her to be and more. Ended up staying at the hospital for about a week just to make sure that I was okay, to run some tests to make sure again that no damage had come from seizures or anything like that. And my mom ended up like having to go back to work and kind of return to life, and my dad was able to stay with me that whole time. He would help me, he would be there for me. He would rock her when she was being colicky, because Aubrey was very colicky. She was such a colicky baby. She had acid reflux. Like, it was a lot. So I know a lot of you guys are probably wondering, where was her father throughout all of this? He came to the hospital one time when this was all going on, like when I was going into labor with her. There was only 3 people allowed in the room at the time, and I wasn't about to make somebody give up their spot for him, because they were actually there for me throughout my whole entire pregnancy. My cousin, my mom, and my dad. I didn't see this kid through my pregnancy at all. I saw him one time, and it was when we were all, because we had the same, if you guys watched my last story time, you know that we had the same group of friends. So we all went out to go to like a haunted hayride one night, and he came and I saw him. But other than that one night, that one time, I had not seen him throughout my pregnancy. Not once. Not once besides that one night. He would text me all the time, say all these things that he was gonna do, talk this big game, but never actually fell through with it. Didn't meet my parents. He literally met my parents at the hospital after I gave birth. So I remember my mom had like texted him and told him that I was giving birth, and I basically said, just tell him that he can come when the baby's here, because I'm not about to have one of you guys give up your spot for him to come in. And not for nothing, but I was also kind of uncomfortable, because you haven't been there for me at all throughout my pregnancy, and then you're just gonna come in the room and watch me give birth to a baby. Like, no, sorry, but my peace over anything. So yeah, basically he wasn't there for the birth, but it wasn't like he didn't want, I mean, my dad even said, he was like, if that was me, I would have at least been in the waiting room, like waiting to see what happens. Like, he kind of took that as like, okay, I'll stay home. Like, and he ended up coming when she was she was just about to get out of the ICU unit. So when I woken up and went to go see her, she still needed to stay for another few hours just to discharge and things like that, until she can come into my new room, because I was finally getting moved up to labor and delivery instead of intensive care. So he had come when she was kind of like in the process of being switched over, and he brought like a couple balloons and like a few gifts, and met my parents finally. And you know, my dad looked at him and he was just like, listen, like, forget about what's happened in the past. Like, start today. Like, start fresh. You know, you have a baby here now. Like, let it change you. Let it motivate you. And just start today. And, like, no hard feelings, basically. Like, he had a complete clean slate to start out, you know. Nobody hated him. Nobody disliked him. Nobody wanted anything more than him to just frickin' be involved, you know. And my mom met him and he, you know, charmed her too and made her think that he was going to be involved and that he was going to be there. And he does it to everybody. He talks a good game. He knows just what to say, when to say it. Classic narcissist. And he convinced everybody into thinking that he was going to step up and be this amazing dad. And I saw through it and I knew the whole time that that wasn't going to happen. But I always like to let people show who they are and let other people make their decisions. So I'm not going to say like, oh, don't believe him, he's just talking a big game. It's like, you know, I'll let you guys learn for yourself, basically. Yeah, I stayed into the hospital for another like week, got discharged, went home, and the rest is history. I've now been a single mom for 7 years. She's going to be 7 in March. The last time that she saw her father was probably 2017. So 4 years ago, about to be 4 years ago. And I don't hear from him. We don't talk. The last time I probably heard from him was like not this past Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving before that. And the last text I received from him was, happy Thanksgiving, I love you both, and I wish things were different. And I didn't respond because I don't have anything to say. Like, if you wanted things to be different, then you'd make them different. So I don't really know what that means. I think it's just a way for him to still try to be present. And it's not like in these past 7 years I haven't heard from him at all. It's just, again, there's always an excuse. Like at first he was seeing her semi-regularly. Like he'd come maybe like once every 3 weeks and just, you know, come to see her for like 2 hours and then leave. And then that started to go downhill and dissolve because he didn't have a car, he didn't have a job, or he didn't have money, even though, you know, there's buses, there's people who he can ask for rides. Like there's ways around it if you actually want it. Wasn't paying child support, has never bought this child a single thing. He bought her diapers one time and they were the wrong size, so I just never asked again after that. Because the type of person that I am, if I ask you something and you tell me, like, if you make me feel weird for asking, like, I'm never gonna ask you again. So one time I asked him for money, not that I needed it, because I've always been financially independent and stable, but I just wanted to teach him some sort of like responsibility without taking him for child support, because I was still being like courteous. And I asked him one time for money for like daycare or something like that, and he said that he didn't have it because he had to pay groceries or he had to pay for his car or something like that. And after that I just never asked because I felt like, what's the freaking point? And that's when I did go to court and I did file for child support, to which he asked me why I wanted him to pay child support, and it's like, because you have a child. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the backstory of what's been happening over the past almost 7 years, is that he would come in and out when he felt like it. And I got to the point, but it wasn't in and out to the point where Aubrey knew who he was. Like, she never had any idea who he was whenever he decided to come back. And I made sure not to say it was her dad. I would say like it's mommy's friend, because I didn't want to set her up for that disappointment, especially because around between when she was born and 1 is when he would kind of come in and out, and then that stopped completely. And then when she was, I want to say 2, he gave me this whole spiel about how he wanted to be a dad and he wanted to be here and he wanted to, you know, get a chance. And that's one thing I'll say about myself, is that I've never told him no when it comes to him wanting to be in her life. I've never said like, nope, sorry, too late, or I'm not like a bitter baby mother. I don't even like using that term. I think it's disrespectful, but I've always given him the benefit of the doubt. I've always welcomed him in. I've always said like, yeah, if you're gonna actually come back and do what you need to do, then sure, I have no problem with you seeing her. I would rearrange my whole schedule for him. I would always make it convenient. I'd always have us meet somewhere that was like closest to him. I would make it super convenient for him is what I'm saying. He never was told no. He was always given an opportunity. He was always given a chance. He was always given a clean slate to start on without any judgment, without any hate, even though I had obviously animosity towards him because I was doing everything on my own. I never expressed that because at the end of the day, I did have a child with this man, and it's not about me, it's about my daughter, and I need to put on a good face and be mature. Even if I can't stand him, I have to go and be around him and be nice to him because I'm not going to make it uncomfortable for him if he wants to actually try to be a dad. So did that for a bit, and then he would just ghost, and I wouldn't hear from him, and I wouldn't know what was going on, and I would kind of just be like, all right, whatever. And the last time that I allowed him to do that was when she was 3, and almost 3. She was almost 3. It was a couple months before she turned 3, so maybe like January. Again, I'd been like, can I call you? He called me. He had this whole spiel about how he was changing his life around. He was getting a car, he was getting a job, and he really wanted just one last chance to be a father towards her. And I said, okay. And same thing again. He was consistent for the first couple visits. And then after that, it was either he needed to reschedule, or he couldn't do this day anymore, or, oh, now I can't go because of this. And then it was always something. And I got to the point where I was just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. I am too busy building our lives to make sure that my daughter is okay. And you're just coming in whenever you feel like you're wanting to come around. I'm moving my whole schedule, my whole life around, taking time out of my day off for you, and you can't even be consistent. And I just decided then and there that I was done, and that I wasn't going to try anymore, and that I didn't care anymore, because at the end of the day, she doesn't know who you are anyway. Like, if you really want to put it to that, she doesn't even know what the word dad means. So why am I the one trying? Like, she knows I'm her mom. I sleep good at night because I know I do my job. Regardless of if you do your job or not, that's on you. I can only control what's on me. And it got to the point where it was too physically and energetically draining for me to continue to see him. So when he decided that he was going to dissolve and fizzle off like he always does, I didn't fight it, and I said, okay. And that was that. She does not know who he is. She hasn't really began to ask questions yet, so I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Eventually, I'm going to have to sit with her and talk about it. But as into terms of where I'm at now, no communication, no physical interaction, nothing like that. I'm doing this on my own for the past 7 years. I completely support her by myself, financially, physically, mentally. And there's times where it's hard. There's times where it's tiring because the kids are not consistent with school right now because of the virus. So 1 week she's in school, 1 week she's out. On the times when she's out of school, it's definitely a little bit more tiring and draining. But I have to say that at the end of the day, no matter how tired I am, no matter how drained I am or spent, I am happy because she is the best thing that's ever happened to me. She is the light of my whole entire light and universe. I don't know what I would do without her. She saved me in so many ways. Before I had her, I was like not going down a great path, and she completely just saved me and derailed me from doing anything that I was about to do for good reason, because it wasn't great things. And at the end of the day, like, I know that she was like my miracle, like my miracle baby, like my gift. Like, I love her so much, and I'm so happy that the things that happened to me did, because being a single mom has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I've learned so much about myself, about other people. I am so much more confident. I have so much more self-esteem. I found my voice. I stepped into my power, because not only am I my biggest advocate, but I'm my baby's biggest advocate. And it really just taught me a lot about life and responsibility, and I don't regret a single thing. I wouldn't go back and do anything differently. I wouldn't change who I had her with, like none of that, because then I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And I can honestly say that I'm in a really good place now, and now I have you guys, and I can share my story and come on here, and some of you can resonate with it or learn something from it. And that's all I really want on this channel anyway, is just for you guys to learn or to resonate or to laugh if you're having a shitty day and watch, you know, one of my story times. That's all I really want. So that is basically it. Thank you so much for watching my story time about me being pregnant at 19. If you guys want any more information or like any more videos on like where I'm at now type of thing, I'd be happy to do a video like that. But I think that basically sums it up. Alright, so we are going to close this out. Show them your wonderful cheetah spots that you put on yourself today.
Hi guys.
Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also consider subscribing to see more of us.
Well, and also, I'm going to start my own channel pretty soon, so you better watch that. It's called Aubrey's Vlog.
Okay, yeah. Don't forget to subscribe and hit your post notifications by clicking the bell icon in the corner. Also, I have a podcast out. It's called The Millennial Empath. I upload every single Thursday. I'll put it in the link for you guys if you want to check it out. Follow me on my social media. It's just dakotaacross, D-A-K-O-T-A, extra A, C-R-O-S-S. And we'll see you guys in our next video.
Remember, my name is Aubrey, and if you want me to do a channel of how to print some cheetah prints, that's okay. So I'm going to start that all soon. Bye. Period.
Bye, guys.